Welcome to the Preston's Corner Podcast, the show that's all about internet marketing. Here's your host, Preston Miller.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today I have a very special guest on the show. He is an entrepreneur from Ottawa, Canada, and he has started one of the coolest online software tools, and I've secretly been using it for the past few months. It's called Snappa, and it's the easiest graphic design tool you'll ever use. And today we're here with the founder, Chris Gimmer. Hey, Chris, how are you today?
Good, man.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Chris. I really just want to talk to you about like how you got to Snappa and kind of what you went through as an entrepreneur, and how you did all this, how you got the development done, and everything like that. So can you tell us a little bit about you and kind of how you got into this?
So it's been a pretty long road for me. I started life as following the typical life script of, going to university and getting a good job and all that good stuff. And so, at 25 years old, I was working for the government and I had a pretty good salary, good pension. And, for most people it was great, but I just found myself really bored and wasn't, too passionate about what I was doing. And around that time, I had met Mark, who's my co-founder at Snappa, and he was a developer. So, he started showing me some of the projects and kind of just stuff he was dabbling with. And I was really fascinated. And, up to that point, I really knew absolutely nothing about, online and the internet. And so around that same time, I had also traveled to Southeast Asia, and it was like one of the best trips of my life. And when I got back, I was just like, man, I really wish that I had more freedom and more ability to travel, and B, being able to work on something that I was more passionate about. So from that point on, like the two of us really just started, working on stuff, and I started to read as much as I could about online marketing and that kind of stuff. So I mean, to give you the really quick version, the first thing we ever worked on was Classmate Catch, which was like a student dating website.
Okay.
And I mean, like it was a failure, but I mean, we actually got, I think it was like around 1,000 users in the first few months.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't a complete failure, but
No,
that's
not bad.
We had no business model, we had no marketing plan, like had no idea what I was doing. So I mean, going back, I would have done so many things differently.
Right.
But it's a learning experience, and so the next thing we did after that was Bootstrap Bay. And so at that point, I was like, all right, clearly we have no clue what we're doing. So that's when I really started to, read a lot of blog posts, listen to podcasts, consume as much info as I can. And so I started learning about SEO and content marketing. And we literally built that business entirely from content marketing and SEO.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so we built that up to about 10K in revenue, not profit, just revenue.
Just right. Okay.
And so at that point, we had basically made enough money where we can feed ourselves and put a roof over our heads. And so we kind of jump shipped from our corporate jobs. And then, while I was working on Bootstrap Bay, I experienced the pain point which led us to build Snappa, where I was doing content marketing. I wasn't a designer. We had absolutely no money to hire one. And there just wasn't a lot of good tools out there to create these graphics. And so that was kind of where we had that first idea to build Snappa.
Wow. Okay. So I know people are going to ask me, so I've got to ask. So, a lot of people who are probably, of all the 10 listeners who listen to this show, are probably, wondering, how did you, manage your job? Like you went to work and then you worked on this at night, like kind of as your side hustle, or how did you make that switch?
Yeah, definitely. So pretty much, working on it nights and weekends, and hopefully my previous boss isn't listening right now. You would sneak in a bit of work here and there when you can. Obviously, some people have jobs where they're just not going to be able to.
Yeah.
But I tried to do some stuff at lunch hour. But yeah, man, it was pure hustle. At the end of the day, if you want it bad enough, you're going to do what it takes. And so we just, busted our ass for a year plus. And, eventually, fortunately, we're making some money where we can take the leap of faith. Yeah. And luckily we haven't had to look back.
Wow, that's exciting. So yeah, I know a lot of people think like this kind of just happens, but no. So it sounds like you guys were grinding it out like every spare second, every time, that you had when you weren't at work, you were putting it into this.
Yeah, So I mean, if I look back to when we started Classmate Catch up to the point where we were making, let's say, a couple grand a month each profit. I mean, that was like a solid 2-3 years.
Wow.
It was. But then, when we had launched Snappa, like we, made a lot more than that in a much shorter amount of time. And so everything that we've done, we've gotten better, grew faster, made more money quicker. Mm-hmm. So it's a process. Like and for us, what I found was it's really like a snowball. Like when you start the snowball, it's really small and doesn't seem much, but by the time it gets to the bottom of the hill, like it's huge. And so that's kind of how I felt it turned out for us, is like the more we hustled, the more we worked at it, the more came our way.
So you found this pain point when you guys were doing Bootstrap Bay of designing stuff, because it sounds like you're more the marketing side of how do we get these cool graphics going, and you had the idea for Snappa.
Yeah, exactly.
So from the idea to actually like the execution, did you guys like kind of pause Bootstrap Bay or kind of keep that going, or what's kind of the story there to kind of piggyback and I guess start Snappa?
So what happened was it was kind of a series of fortunate events. So,
okay.
Well, some manufactured fortunate events. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So we were, like I said, I was doing a lot of content marketing, and so I'd read this post from Brian Dean called about the skyscraper technique. I don't know if you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up stumbling upon this post on Medium about where to find free stock photos. Uh-huh. And so this was a few years back. So, sites like, StockSnap and Unsplash and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were still very new. There's only few of them. So this post got, I think it was on Reddit, and it did extremely well. And it was literally just a list of links.
Okay.
And so I was like, wow, obviously there's, a big demand for these, cool, modern, looking stock photos that are released under Creative Commons. So essentially what I did was I just took those links and turned it into like a much better, longer blog post. And so when I released it, it just went viral. And it actually started, it went so crazy that it started ranking on the first page of Google for free stock photos.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it was crazy. So then, like my, the entrepreneur kicked in me. I was like, all right, well, or actually what happened was like, I figured at some point that it would just die down, but I mean, the traffic just kept increasing to this post. So when I looked at, all the sites that we were linking out to, uh-huh. Most of them were just releasing like 7 photos a day, and there was no search functionality. Like you couldn't sort anything. So it was kind of shitty because you had to, go to like 5-6 different sources. So essentially, we had the idea, well, obviously like there's a big need for these stock photos. Why don't we just make our own site?
There you go.
So we built our own, which is stocksnap.io. Mm-hmm. And then we released that. We put it up on Product Hunt, got like 1,000 upvotes.
Oh my gosh.
So then that site kind of started taking off. And so, we had the idea for Snappa before all this happened, but the problem with Snappa is it costs $15 a month. So, right. In order to make money off a tool like that, you need a lot of customers. And so we weren't really confident at that time, like, how are we going to market this thing?
Right.
So that was kind of one of the reasons too we wanted to do the StockSnap thing. We figured, well, if we have our own stock photo site that ends up becoming really popular, mm-hmm. that would be a perfect way to promote Snappa.
Yeah. So did you guys build up? I don't know if you guys were doing like email marketing or anything like that. I've heard about people who launch and have lists of 10,000 people, and you just do thousands and thousands of revenue on just the launch day.
Sorry, a list for which one?
Like when you guys were building StockSnap, and then you launch Snappa, and you go, hey, I've got 1,000 people who have already registered to receive email updates or new photos or anything like that.
So with StockSnap, we did build an email list while we're doing that. And the other thing that we were doing was like the second we started writing code for Snappa, we put up a landing page. And even from day one, we started cross-promoting that landing page to StockSnap. So by the time we had launched like the initial beta for Snappa, we already had, I can't even remember how big the list was, but it was at least like a couple thousand, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So and the other thing too is like I actually started sending out surveys to people who are on StockSnap asking what they were using the stock photos for, because I wanted to know, like, are these social media people, are these digital marketers? And it turned out that a lot of them were. And I also did some Skype interviews to figure out what tools were they using. I wanted to get a sense of whether they had the same problem or not.
Right.
And I had a lot of conversations where, people really did have this issue of not having any good tools to create graphics for their content marketing and social media and stuff like that. So we had a lot of confidence that, Snappa would be a useful tool for this audience.
Yeah, wow, that's exciting. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I just got on Snappa a few months ago, but it looks like you guys, you're coming up on a year anniversary of it. It was November 2015, is that right?
That's right, yeah. So that was the official launch.
Okay.
And we had been running our beta since, I think it was July. So I don't know when you had signed up for Snappa, but like if you would have seen the first beta, it was like so basic.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, we didn't have templates. You couldn't save. I don't even think we had like the alignment to it. Like it was really. But you know what? That I would recommend everyone to launch as early as possible, because it really helped us prioritize, what features were the most critical.
So that, what you just said reminds me, was that strategy based on, the book, The Lean Startup, create the most minimum viable product and see if it catches on and then build on top of that? Was that kind of your reasoning there, or was it something else?
More or less. I mean, we had gotten burned in the past by, building stuff for 4 months and then realizing we just wasted 4 months. So we didn't want to make that same mistake again. And so we were really just anxious to start getting some initial feedback and figuring out what the most important features are, and whether the UI made sense and all that kind of stuff.
Wow. Yeah. So for people who are listening, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a blogger, if you're on social media at all, you've got to check out Snappa. I've been using it on my blog, prestonscorner.com, for like feature images. I've also been doing some stuff on YouTube. It's a fantastic tool if you don't want to get into, some of the other more complicated design softwares. But I mean, if you will, Chris, can you tell us like how many people, it's a freemium model. So you have free users, you have paid users, but like how many people are checking out Snappa? How many people are on there?
Yeah, so right now we have 1,200 paying customers.
Okay,
and
wow.
We typically see, over 5,000 active monthly between the freemium and the paid.
Okay, wow, that's actually pretty good. I'll just tell you, I think I found it through SEO from Googling, different design tools, trying to find something more simple than just Photoshop. Because I know a lot of people are using that. It's too complicated for me. I don't know. Have you seen that in your experience?
For what, sir? Photoshop or
no? Just
you mean the leads?
I mean, people who are using Snappa, they don't want to get into something crazy like Photoshop, InDesign. They don't want to go down that whole road. They just need a basic, graphic editor. Yeah,
totally. So, I mean, I've been doing. Actually, you were one of them. So we've been doing customer calls over the past month. And so we're actually kind of revamping the copy on our website, because I realized it kind of sucks. And we're trying to learn a lot more about, who really are, who's getting the most value from the tool, what were they using before,
right,
and what were like a shocking amount of people were actually using Photoshop. And, it's complicated, it's slow, it doesn't have, built-in graphics. for people who aren't professional designers, it's really easy to convince them on the value of Snappa.
Yeah, and I also got to tell you, you guys have a great promo video on the homepage. I can tell you guys put a lot of work into that, but that is fantastic, A+. Do you guys do any kind of like split? Are you guys doing paid ads? Are you guys doing any kind of paid advertising, or is it all you're kind of focusing on content marketing?
So right now we've been really focused on building out some of the core features. So we had just released image resize, which is
yes.
A huge feature. Tons of people have been asking for it. We're just about to roll out save folders. So now you can and search. So now you can easily search your designs and store them in folders and stuff like that. And then we're just about to release undo redo, save colors. We got a ton of really, really good stuff coming out. So we haven't, our strategy right now is get the product to the point where it's really good, and we have churn under control, and we're not onboarding's good and stuff like that. And at that point, then we might start dabbling in paid ads and stuff like that. But right now it's all inbound. I mean,
right.
Paid ads is really tough to work, and you basically need to put a lot of focus into it. So we're just not there yet right now.
Okay. So how many people do you have at Snappa? I know you said you got you and your co-founder Mark. How many people are actually working there right now?
Yeah, so right now it's me and my co-founder. We have a full-time developer, a full-time graphic designer, and a VA that helps us out with some stuff.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. So if you had any advice for an entrepreneur who wants to kind of do a SaaS model or a web app or something like this, I mean, I guess you kind of lucked out because you hooked in with Mark, but for somebody who's trying to find a developer or get anything like this done, what advice do you have for them? I mean, you've done this. What would you say?
So when it comes to SaaS, so number one, the hard thing about SaaS is you're charging, a monthly fee, which is great. The recurring revenue portion of it is really great. The problem is it takes, a year or two to really get that lifetime value from the customer. Right. And so the issue with SaaS is that there's a lot of, upfront development time and costs, and you don't necessarily see the fruits of your labor until a bit further down the road. So personally, I don't know how anyone would be able to run a successful SaaS company unless they have a technical co-founder who's going to be really passionate on the project. And it's interesting because, do you know Nathan Barry?
No, I'm not familiar.
So he's published a ton of books around design, and so he recently started ConvertKit, which is a email marketing software.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, so he runs ConvertKit.
Okay.
And just quick story, when he first started it, he was using contractors and stuff like that, and the thing was just chugging along, and he wasn't really putting all his effort into it too. He was still, doing his books and all that kind of stuff. So basically for about a year, it just kind of was doing a couple grand MRR and wasn't growing. And then at one point he's someone had said, if you want, you either need to shut down the business or you need to focus on it. And so he put 50 grand of his own money into the company, hired a really good technical guy, started focusing on it 100%. And now they're just absolutely crushing it. They're doing a couple $1 million ARR in literally 2 years or something like that. So, SaaS it's got a lot of advantages, but you always have to continually improve the software. There's always going to be bugs to fix and stuff like that. And I just feel to do SaaS, you really need to have a good technical guy who has skin in the game, who's going to work, and bust his ass when a new feature needs to come out and that kind of stuff. So I don't have, I was pretty lucky, but I would just say try to network, ask around, and just, if you can bring some value, a lot of programmers, like, they don't want to do marketing. They don't want to do sales. So if you can bring that to the table, then, that it's a good selling point for them.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I've been trying to kind of figure this out. And these guys overseas, you don't know who they are. You don't know who you're dealing with. And just wiring them money, kind of freaks me out, to be honest, because I've seen people go, oh, just hire them overseas. It's super cheap and all this. And I'm going, if somebody's not invested, or, a technical co-founder or something like that, or you're not giving them equity or anything, then I just don't know how, why they would really care,
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a difference between getting someone to build you a website and building the core infrastructure of your company. Like when you think of a SaaS business, the most important thing is the technology behind it. So if you can't trust the person that built it, like you can really get through it. Like if someone builds you a website or like an e-commerce store and the thing goes down, you can always hire someone else to fix it or whatever. It's not the technology itself isn't the lifeblood of the business. But when you're talking about SaaS, it really is. And so I just don't see any other way around it.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Chris. I know everybody's really going to enjoy this episode, but if you haven't checked out Snappa, you've got to go check that out. Chris and his team have really outdone themselves. It's a fantastic tool. If you've seen my graphics on my site, they're all made with Snappa, and I'll link to it in the description below. But thank you so much for being on the show, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks so much for listening to the Preston's Corner podcast with your host, Preston Miller. We'll catch you next time.